Guys, now it's time for my heart to break even more because De'Aaron Fox was officially traded away from the Sacramento Kings yesterday, being Sunday night, as Jaevon puts his flashlight up in the air to memorialize the career of De'Aaron Fox as a Sacramento King. So De'Aaron Fox gets to go exactly where he wants. He is now paired up with a generational talent. If it's not Luka, it'll be Wemby when they retire as the greatest European player of all time. And who knows how far Wemby will get as far as his ceiling, because he's already arguably the best defensive player in the NBA. He's going to continue to get better offensively. Now he has a bona fide all-star as his pick and roll partner. De'Aaron arguably should have been a multiple-time all-star at this point, but he played in Sacramento, and the NBA hates Sacramento. That's why Domantas Sabonis didn't make the all-star team. Like the all-star, yeah, and the all-star starters came out this past week. We're not even going to talk about that today because we don't have time. But Domantas Sabonis got snubbed again, and we could get into that maybe ahead of the all-star game in a couple weeks. But anyways, the full trade was the Spurs acquired De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings acquired Zach LaVine, City Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, 2025 Charlotte, 2027 San Antonio, and 2031 Minnesota. 3 second-round picks, 2025 Chicago, 2028 Denver, and the Kings got their own 2028 pick back from the Spurs, and that's the second-round pick. And the Bulls acquire Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter from the Kings, and they got their own 2025 pick back via San Antonio. And so, Kevin, as the fellow Kings fan on this panel, obviously for the audio-only list, not obviously because we have audio-only listeners, but I'm wearing my De'Aaron Fox jersey today just because I'm genuinely sad. I did not want De'Aaron Fox to leave Sacramento. I wanted him to be a King for life. I thought years ago that De'Aaron Fox would be traded away instead of Tyrese Halliburton. And then they chose to trade away Tyrese Halliburton. So at that point, De'Aaron Fox gets the keys to the team, and he was supposed to be a King forever. Instead, now 2 years later, he is a San Antonio Spur. And so I'm very upset about it. But Kevin, I saw your comment on De'Aaron Fox's goodbye post today when De'Aaron, I will say that De'Aaron had a typo within the first sentence, and I'm like, no one could have proofread this for you. Come on. But Kevin, I saw you say you should have left this one in the draft. So it seems like you're not that upset about De'Aaron Fox being gone from Sacramento. I know you mentioned that the Kings might have just built the next Spurs dynasty, but how are you feeling about this as a Sacramento Kings fan and the overall return?
So Toddy and I have been talking about De'Aaron Fox trades for about
2 months.
A month. 2 months. I knew it was coming. We've seen this. I'm a huge LeBron fan. I saw LeBron leave Cleveland for fucking nothing. I saw Kevin Durant leave OKC for fucking nothing. And I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox is LeBron and Kevin Durant. All I'm saying is when you're an NBA organization, you have to trade your asset while it's still a business. You have to trade your asset while they have the most boom, while they have the most noise around them. And that is De'Aaron Fox now. When he didn't want to sign in the offseason, Toddy said to me, and I said, look, he's going to Houston. I was wrong team in Houston, wrong team in Dallas. But all the analogy, being from there, all that still lines up. But I would have rather us go down as a organization that doesn't like players. You can't trust them. And I would have traded De'Aaron Fox at the highest fucking bidder. Have their ass trade him to San Antonio. Because I was telling Toddy, I'm down to send him to Houston where he's from because it's going to be a win-win. As long as this business transactional is win-win, I'm all in. But for us to get a lottery protected first from Charlotte, a 2027 pick from the Spurs, which if Shaun was here, I'm sure he'd agree. We all think the Spurs will be pretty good, right? In a couple years? Bad pick. So now, we talked about sixth graders. If you guys been along for this ride for a while, there is a sixth grader that's waiting to hear his name called by the Sacramento Kings, baby. So he's coming aboard, but for the Sacramento Kings to get Zach LaVine, City Ciesco, and those 3 first-round picks, like I said, Toddy, I would have rather sent them to the highest bidder because the San Antonio Spurs have way better assets, and this is a business. You trade our best asset for their worst assets. How is this a good trade? So, not only did we get their horrible picks, they have the Atlanta Hawks unprotected picks for the next 3 seasons. 3 seasons. And you give us a lottery protected Charlotte pick? Fuck that. You know what? That's picks, Kevin. They want to keep their picks. Fine by me. We couldn't get Stephon Castle, 20 years old, rookie deal, averaging 12, 4, and 3. Couldn't get Devin Vassell, 24 years old, 16 points, 4 boards, 3 assists. Just got a fresh, cheap deal. Long, cheap deal. You know what? We couldn't get Jeremy Sohan, 21 years old, averaging 12 and 8. Fuck it. We would have taken Keldon Johnson. You can throw him in there. He's averaging 16 and 6. You know, there's so many other pieces that we could have gotten out of this trade. And for us to get Zach LaVine says one thing and one thing only. The Chicago Bulls saved the San Antonio Spurs from gutting themselves. If we don't get Zach LaVine, they have to gut their team. And I think even with Zach LaVine, we could have got one of those picks. Like, that unprotected first does nothing for us. No one here thinks the Charlotte Hornets are about to go on a run to make their pick not be top 14. So we essentially got worse from trading our franchise player. And that's what I was hoping we didn't do. And this was no longer something that benefits both sides because these picks suck and no one thinks Zach LaVine's better than De'Aaron Fox, right? So we got worse. We now have no point guard. Now all the rumors about Devin Carter have to go off the toilet because he has to play. He has to play. Colby Jones has to play. You know, we have all these guys. There's a lot of questions around the Kings. If this was the NLBO, if this was going to be the end all be all, I would have rather us just trade Fox early and keep Mike Brown because at least we had a foundation. We had a coach of the year. We had the light to beam. We had the movement. For Kings fans, Toddy doesn't get it, but Shaun and I were 2 years ago. We were living the dream. I was at the game where they clinched the drought. It was over.
He was on TV.
Light the beam. Like
I was at that first playoff game and it was magical. And then I went to game 4 in San Francisco when Harrison Barnes missed the 3 that could have put them up 3-1. Like even after they lost that playoff series, like I thought condolences, but I thought that the Kings were finally turning a corner. And as you said, Kevin, there was a foundation. And to be here 2 years later and to have 1 playoff appearance, 2 winning seasons, like this is why I was so upset with them firing Mike Brown. And I didn't mean to jump in on your thoughts here, Kevin, but it's just so upsetting to be a Sacramento Kings fan. I mean, Toddy said regarding the picks that the Kings got in our Stats Over Politics Fantasy Football group chat. Toddy said, I believe you said, and I quote, y'all got fucked or something like that. And I said, being a Kings fan is a constant cycle of getting fucked. It's sad, but it's true.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate to see this play out the way it did. I love De'Aaron, don't get me wrong. But like I said, the Dallas Mavericks said, fuck Luka. We're doing what's best for us. And looking at it 2020, I would have rather us said the same thing. And like Shaun, you weren't here. I say send his ass to Utah and have them send at the Spurs. Like, have it be their problem to deal with. Like,
I heard it.
This doesn't benefit us at all. So I'm just very frustrated. And yes, Zach LaVine's having the best year of his career and he's being healthy. And they still were trying to trade him for the past 16 months. So all that being said, they didn't want him on his team. So we'll see. But
yep.
I'm hoping we can turn it around and do something, but we don't even have our own first. And now we're basically not going to have a first-round pick at all. So all this for what?
Yeah, Toddy, as Kevin was saying, Zach LaVine is having quite a bounce-back year this season because he's right up there with his career averages. He's actually shooting the best percentage from the field that he has had since his breakout season in the 2021 or 2020-21 season. He's shooting 51% from the field, and he's shooting the best from three-point range in his entire career. He's shooting 45% from three right now, averaging 24 points a game. And this is all after last year where he only played 25 games. He's played 42 thus far this season. And in those 42 games, 24 points a game, 51% from the field, and 45% from three. 45% from three is really, really good. And so, Toddy, you for the audio only listeners, Toddy had his hands up in pure Drewski fashion, and he when I was emphasizing those stats, Toddy's hands started going back and forth like he was Jey Uso with the yeet chant. But anyways, that the noise that you heard is he accidentally knocked over his microphone. But Toddy, as our unbiased panelist when it comes to this trade, just what do you think about what the Kings got with the overall return and also the future of the Sacramento Kings? Because obviously Wemby and Fox is going to be a lethal combination, but where do the Kings go from here? And are you satisfied with the return that they got?
Look, De'Aaron Fox, 7 years, got drafted here, been here in his career, All-NBA, one-time All-NBA. Was he third team All-NBA or second? Third. Okay, made the playoffs. First playoff game had, 50 in his first playoff game? Or close to 50. I'm not sure if it was.
He was close to it. He had I think he was 42.
40 something. Yeah. So that was 2 years ago. You had Mike Brown winning Coach of the Year, De'Aaron Clutch Player of the Year, the Vivek Executive of the Year, or was it Monty McNair?
Monty McNair. Yeah.
So in a 2-year time frame, you go from that to missing the playoffs, to firing your coach, to trading your All-NBA, All-Star, homegrown draft pick from 2016, I believe that was. I don't like the capital that was gotten back. A bunch of second-round picks, a bunch of fugazi first-round picks. A lot of people really don't know that the Charlotte pick is protected 1 through 14. People have no idea that. Like, we got Charlotte's first round pick. That was kind of me and Kevin. We were going back and forth on the compensation. Until I actually read into it. I was like, oh, that first round pick that you got from Charlotte, it's protected. So, get all of that being said, you get a guy in Zach LaVine. Shaun was pointing out all the numbers. He's averaging close to his career. He's shooting 50% from the field and 44% from three. Now, I ain't no damn mathematician, but I think that's better than De'Aaron Fox. Now, I'm not saying that he is better than De'Aaron Fox. No. I am saying it's not going to be as bad as you think. I think going forward, I feel like in the short term, you guys will look really, really good. Like, on Wednesday, when he makes a debut, I'm taking Kings money line. I'm saying that right now. Home game, LaVine. The last time LaVine and DeRozan, they were teammates. All-Star, made the playoffs. Y'all remember that series that he had against the Bucks? Before I believe they won 1 or 2 games in that series, but LaVine had gotten hurt in that series, and that kind of just derailed everything, and then it was over from then. But if you kind of watch that series, I think it was like 3 years ago when Chicago was playing against Milwaukee, they were kind of giving Milwaukee a run for their money. I think in the short term, you guys will look very good and kind of be one of those teams that are like, oh, Sacramento, what do they kind of got going on over there? Been following D'Lo and KC a lot because D'Lo's been the guy, really. If you look at all of the sourcing. It always says ESPN 1320. That's D'Lo.
Well, I will say
and James Ham. I'll say too.
Yes,
those two guys are on it as far as anything about this trade. I've been kind of keeping up with them to see kind of what the ins and outs have been. But I think it could work. A lot of scoring. I worry about your defense, and I don't think McNair's done. I think the Kings are going to try and look out and try to see if they can get a backup point guard, probably some wing depth, and perhaps look for another big. You saw the Kings were able to put up points on their win against the Timberwolves. Now, you guys got to win. Got a W. Now, I think this is something that long term you're going to look over at the other side at the Riverwalk, and you're going to see De'Aaron Fox and Wemby in the playoffs, winning games.
Winning championships.
That's where perhaps that as well. And you gave them away, De'Aaron Fox. And Fox was looking just for some help. Like, hey, it's ran its course here. The year that they got to the playoffs, I always kind of go back to this. The Kings Monty McNair did nothing to get better after that Kings playoff run. They were like, oh, well, let's try and run it back. Didn't go as planned. They didn't make the playoffs. And you still kind of go into it with in the next season, and you kind of run into another wall again. Don't really make any moves at the trade deadline. Kind of just run it off, and it's just the same team, essentially. So even going back to when DeMarcus Cousins was here, you were always waiting for him to kind of get somebody else in to, help him out a little bit. Kind of had that run with Isaiah Thomas, Rudy Gay, but they fired the coach. But that kind of just goes back to it's the revolving door of the Kings firing their coach, kind of stripping their team down and rebuilding. And it's kind of the same cycle over and over and over again. And that's kind of the reality of being a Kings fan. Unfortunately, the fans here are like, if you ask a bunch of people around the league, like Anthony Edwards, one of the top players in the league, one of his favorite places he loves playing is in Sacramento because he loves the environment. And it just feels like, because out here, this is basically the only team that they have out here. So it's like, that's why everybody eat, breathes, and shits Kings basketball.
Besides Toddy.
So, yeah, besides me. But I just think that the environment here, the city, like everybody loves the Kings organization, but the front office seems to be just, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, why are we firing Mike Brown? Like, literally after Mike Brown was fired, me and Kevin were like, he's gone. He's out of there. So yep. I think this was something that was a little bit delayed. Probably should have happened a little bit sooner, but I mean, we're here now. I do think the Luka trade maybe rushed the compensation. Like, the compensation should have been way better than it is, to be honest. If we're, like Kev was saying, there's a bunch of unpredicted first that the Hawks have. They could have got they could have got the Spurs pick. I mean, there's just a bunch of picks that, if you kind of look at it, they really just got a bunch of second round picks when it's all said and done. So, and they got Zach LaVine, and the Kings don't have a first round pick. Like, the Kings don't even have control of their first round pick next year.
Yeah, it's in Atlanta.
Atlanta has that pick. So it's like, going into it, it's like, okay, how are we going to build for the future? What future? Zach LaVine's our future. DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, that's the future. And you're like, I'm looking at the Spurs. I'm looking at all these other teams that got just a shit. Like, OKC has a shit ton of picks, and they're number one in the Western Conference.
Yep. It really.
What do the Kings have to show for it? They don't really have any picks.
Zach LaVine.
They don't really have anything to show for the future. So I understand Kevin's frustration, and he's like, "Fuck right now," is what Kevin is saying. Like, what are we going to look like in the next 5 years? And I think you guys are kind of in a similar situation to, I don't know if you guys remember that Kobe Bryant, like, last couple of years when Kobe was hurt. And it was like a bunch of Robert Sacres, and you got Turiaf.
That was literally the only time that I hated the Warriors more than the Lakers, because the Lakers were down so bad and the Warriors were on top of the world.
This is what Kevin dreads. He doesn't want to look like that in the next couple of years and not have anything to show for it. You could be you're so bad and you don't have picks. You're just gonna be bad. Like, I don't know, man. And then I mean, you look at the first round pick that the Timberwolves had. That's all the way in 2031. Like Kevin was saying, there's a sixth grader out there waiting to get his name called. So I think the Kings are going to look good in the short term, but in the long term, it's kind of like, what are we going to look like? Does Monty McNair keep his job? Like,
Probably not.
Is he getting fired after this season? Like, what has to happen
if
for him to be able to keep his job?
the Kings make the playoffs, not the play-in, they make the playoffs. I think that's the only.
So he's fired after this year. He's gone.
Yeah,
probably.
gotta be.
Yeah. I mean,
so if he's gone, how would you would have to strip this entire team down? Like you'd have to trade like your key pieces. Like Sabonis probably got to go. Like there's a bunch of how do you got to strip this team down basically at some point in time.
Yeah, exactly. And yep. And so the thing about the Charlotte first round pick in 2025 is right now Charlotte is 7.5 games out of the 10 spot in the East. So they're 7.5 games out of making it into the play-in. So usually Toddy has been recording podcasts with me now for 4 going on 5 years. And so he knows very well, and Kevin, I'm sure you know well enough at this point as well, because we've been together for 2 years, is that when it comes to the Kings, I'm usually Mr. Pessimism. I am pessimistic Shaun when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. And it's because I've been hurt so many times over the years. And I will say, number one, I'm heartbroken when it comes to De'Aaron Fox no longer being a Sacramento King. When De'Aaron officially got traded, or when D'Lo and KC both said yesterday around 5 o'clock, turn on your notifications, like basically it's about to happen, and the finality of it set in, I hadn't felt that way since DeMarcus Cousins was traded. And I was really upset when Tyrese Halliburton was dealt. But Tyrese was in his second year with the Kings and in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox, he's been here for 8 years. He immersed himself in the community. His wife, Risay, who he met while he was a Sacramento King. Like this, okay, so I'm only going to mention this because De'Aaron Fox is no longer a King. But my ex-girlfriend from high school, who I dated for 2.5 years, when I was still dating her in 2017, De'Aaron Fox shot his shot at her little sister. Like he was trying to get at her. And she thought it was the biggest deal ever. She's like, "Oh, look who slid in my DMs." That's who De'Aaron Fox was. A boy when he came to Sacramento. He is now a man. He has a wife and a son and another baby on the way. He met his wife Risay while he was in Sacramento, and she immersed herself within the Sacramento community. And I'm just so grateful for the Fox family, and I really thought that he would be here for his whole career. And so I'm really upset, but thank you to De'Aaron Fox. I'll just start by saying that. That's why I wore my Fox jersey today, because I'm just sad about it, man. Like I'm genuinely sad. I'm sad that I had to go this way. Kevin, I understand your point of trading him to whoever the highest bidder is, and he can find his way to San Antonio or Houston from there. But you know, when a player gives everything to a franchise like he did, playing through injuries, night in, night out, he signed that. He didn't sign the latest Supermax offer, but he did sign one of them. He signed that Supermax in 2020, and so he committed. And then they finally found something that worked, and the Kings responded by firing the guy who broke your playoff drought, who had, in 2 seasons, he had 2 winning seasons. Yeah, they started this year 13-19 or whatever it was when Mike Brown got fired. That was the biggest head scratcher to me, and just, I mean, that was the catalyst, as you guys already said, to De'Aaron Fox ultimately having the finality of he didn't want to be here anymore. And I'm just really upset about it. But just to circle back to what I was saying about my optimism versus my pessimism, is I'm actually feeling optimistic about this, because yes, and I think maybe it's because I'm just so down so bad when it comes to De'Aaron no longer being around. I could either spiral down further, or I could try to look at it with the glass half full rather than half empty. as I said, that Charlotte pick is looking like it's going to convert into a second round pick. But there's still plenty of season left. There's 7.5 games out of the play-in, and LaMelo could go on a run, and he could will his team to the play-in. And I know that the last time they made the play-in, from what I could recall, they got the brakes beat off of them by the Indiana Pacers. But stranger things have happened. That's all I'm saying. And so I'm just going to hope that somehow Charlotte finds a way to get in there. I'm sure now that the Kings of all teams have their pick, they're going to probably try to tank even harder because that's just kind of Kang's luck. But I'm going to try to be optimistic. And I think the reason why I feel so optimistic is because I was so pessimistic about what the Kings were going to get in return for De'Aaron Fox. I thought it was going to be much worse. I'm not the biggest fan of Zach LaVine. When the Kings tried to sign him in 2018 it was, I wasn't a fan of it. He is an elite scorer, but he's extremely lacking on the defensive end. Like, he doesn't really do too much beyond being a scorer. And so it's not great. But for them to get a former All-Star in return, and a former All-Star that, yeah, they may have just been a perennial play-in team when he was teamed up with DeMar DeRozan in Chicago. DeMar DeRozan welcomed Zach LaVine to Sacramento. Maybe it's just all for show and for social media. But to me, I see that as DeMar's happy to have Zach LaVine here in Sacramento with him, which helps the team chemistry. And we saw them win tonight in Minnesota, Zach LaVine's former home. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But
last time DeMar and Zach LaVine were on the same team, made the playoffs.
They did. They did.
What else they do?
It was in the East. So you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Make the playoffs. We've done that too.
I mean, as Kings fans, though, like that is amazing for us because we've been down.
Not anymore, Shaun. Like Toddy bashed us for not making any moves. Toddy, you understand this. You know ball. We lost 2 less games. Who would have thought the West was going to fucking blow up? We lost 2. We were the 3 seed. Lost 2 less games, and we're a play-in team. Who would have thought, Toddy? Who could we have brought in? Superman? We didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah, I think what always happens is the Kings panic and fire somebody.
Indeed.
Panic, fire, you're gone. Why would you do that? Oh, why would you fire Dave Yeager? Oh, why would you fire Mike Malone? Why would you fire Mike Brown?
Well, also
get a new GM.
Well, also, Jaevon, what's the root of all that? Where does it all lead back to?
Ownership. Sell the team?
Yeah.
You just need a new owner? You guys need a new owner? I mean, shit. You guys had the Maloofs. You guys
at this point,
Vivek, like what?
At this point, like all the goodwill that Vivek garnered from saving the team, it's running out. It really is running out because I'm grateful to have a team, but when they just are, they are what they are, and you finally have something that works and you have a guy in charge that is trying to save his own job. And so he's like, hey, let me fire the coach so then I don't get fired first. It's just such a head scratcher, and it's just so hard being a Sacramento Kings fan. I'm going to try to be optimistic about it. 3 firsts, cool. Even though one of them's lottery protected, 3 seconds. Hey, I saw that the Bulls are looking. Maybe they could just be the Sacramento Bulls and get Lonzo Ball for a 2nd round pick. I guess. Or maybe.
Are you happy with that 27 Spurs pick, Shaun?
Not necessarily, because like you said, there's all the unprotected Atlanta picks. That like we kept talking about, like, is it going to be Vassell or is it going to be Stephon Castle? And it ended up with neither. Not even Jeremy Sohan, as Kevin covered earlier. And
one of them picks could have been AJ DeBonsa.
Cooper Flag. Ace Bay.
Shout out as well to Kevin's sister, Alex, who says, sell the Kings, bring back the Monarchs. And Alex, I'm really glad that you said that because part of the goodwill that's been lost with me when it comes to Vivek is he said when he said when he acquired the Kings that he was going to work on bringing back the Monarchs, and that never came to fruition. He never even tried as the WNBA continues to expand. And so that I never forgot that. I never forgot that he said he was going to bring back the Monarchs and never really tried to do so. And like you said, Jaevon,
been the owner?
Since 2013. So 12 years now. It's been a long time. And shout out to Gary's brother, Jesse, who said, at least the beam is lit today. LOL. Woohoo! Hey, man. I mean, I love the positivity, Jesse. I appreciate that. And so that does it when it comes to talking about
26. DeRozan at 33.
DeRozan went off, man.
Hooping.
Kevin is so over it.